This happened during the final week of summer before I left for college. I was 18, working part-time at a regional supermarket chain just outside our small town. One of those big box types, with the red vests and price-matching signs taped to every aisle. Nothing glamorous, but it helped me save a bit before moving away. My final shift was a Sunday night closing. I remember it vividly because the store was practically dead. Most people were off enjoying the long weekend. Just a handful of last-minute shoppers earlier in the day. By 9:45 p.m., we had locked the front doors, lights were halfway dimmed, and I was finishing up register cleanup near the front end. That's when I noticed a man walking past aisle 12. At first, I thought maybe he was an employee. He was wearing dark clothes, maybe a hoodie, but we'd already done a head count. Everyone was either in the office or back near the break room. I stood there for a second, hoping I was just seeing things. "Sir?" I called out, stepping out from behind the register. "We're closed. You need to head to the front." He didn't respond. I walked a little closer. He'd turned the corner at the end of the aisle, toward the frozen food section. Still not running, just moving with purpose, like he had somewhere to be. I got on the walkie clipped to my belt. "Hey, there's a guy still in the store. Anyone know who he is?" My manager, Lisa, responded, confused. "No, all customers are gone. Can you keep eyes on him? I'm pulling the security feed now." I followed slowly, rounding the corner into the back half of the store. It was quiet. No music, no carts rolling, no voices. I could hear the squeak of my own shoes on the polished floor. Then I saw him again, this time crouched low by the meat section coolers, as if pretending to look for something. But I could tell by the way his head kept snapping around that he knew I was there. "Hey man, we're closed. You need to leave. Now." He stood up and stared. No words, just this intense stare. Then he took a single step toward me. That's when I backed off. I wasn't about to play hero on my last shift. I called it in again, firmer this time. "Lisa, he's not leaving. Looks like he's tweaking or something. Kinda aggressive. I'm calling security. Just back off and keep visual." I ducked into an adjacent aisle to put some distance between us, then peeked around the end cap. He was gone. "Lost visual," I said. He moved fast. That's when things started to escalate. I heard a loud crash come from the cleaning supplies aisle. I ran over and saw that he'd knocked over a tower of bleach bottles and detergent jugs. Not stealing, just wrecking stuff. As I turned the corner, I caught a glimpse of him bolting toward the emergency exit at the back of the store. I took off running. I don't know what possessed me, maybe adrenaline, but I chased after him, shouting for him to stop. Right as he slammed into the crash bar and the alarm blared, two security guys who had just arrived were already sprinting in from the loading dock. They tackled him just outside the emergency door, right there on the pavement between the dumpsters and the back fence. I remember standing there, watching them pin him down. He wasn't fighting hard, just muttering to himself. The weirdest part? He hadn't stolen anything. No bag, no cart. He wasn't even high, at least not obviously. Later, Lisa told me he didn't have ID on him either. Just a disposable camera in the pocket of his hoodie. When they looked through the photos, it was all just pictures of the store, empty aisles, the employee break room, one of the women's bathroom doors. That's when it clicked. He hadn't just wandered in. He had been there before, maybe multiple times, watching. The next day, the regional office called to offer me a gift card and a thank you for acting quickly. I didn't care about that. I was just glad it was my last shift. The guy was never charged with anything serious, just trespassing and vandalism. But I still think about how long he might have been in the store before I saw him, what he was planning, why he chose that night, and what would have happened if I hadn't noticed him when I did. We have a family tradition. Every Labor Day weekend, we close up our lake house in northern Michigan. It's an old place, tucked into the tree line off a gravel road, about a half-mile from the water. Nothing fancy. Just a modest two-story with creaky floors, a propane stove, and furniture that's been there since the early 2000s. That year, it was me, my wife Sarah, and our two kids, Ava and Nathan. Ava was 16 and starting to care more about her phone than family getaways. Nathan was 12, still excited by frogs and firewood. We drove up Saturday morning, spent the day pulling the dock out of the water, draining the lines, bringing the kayaks up from the shore, the usual. That night we grilled out one last time, then played board games by lantern light before turning in early. Our plan was to be up by 6 a.m. and on the road by 7. Instead, I woke up at 3:12 a.m. to the sound of glass shattering. At first, I thought it was just the wind, or maybe a branch. But then came the heavy thump of boots on the floor downstairs. Multiple sets. I got up fast, grabbed the flashlight from the nightstand, and crept into the hallway. Sarah was already up, holding Ava and Nathan in the doorway across the hall. Her face was pale. I was about to whisper for everyone to hide in the bathroom when a man's voice called up. "We know you're home. Come down, now. No one gets hurt if you cooperate." The kids started crying. I told Sarah to lock the bathroom and hide, but it was too late. Another voice yelled from outside the house, by the back entrance, saying they had the place surrounded. They weren't bluffing. Within seconds, 2 men in ski masks were standing at the top of the stairs with rifles. One of them aimed straight at me and said, "Family meeting." Now. I've never felt so helpless in my life. They herded all 4 of us into the living room. One of them made me sit in the rocking chair, while Sarah and the kids were forced to sit on the couch. Then, they zip-tied our hands and feet. The taller one, he had a hunting camo jacket on, walked around like he owned the place, flashlight in one hand, rifle in the other. "You folks got any cash? Guns? Jewelry?" he asked. I didn't answer. He nodded at the other guy, who pulled out a knife and made a show of waving it near Ava's arm. I broke immediately, told them everything. Over the next hour, we sat there helpless while they tore through our house. They found our emergency cash in the kitchen drawer, took Sarah's engagement ring, and even made off with a small safe I kept hidden in the floorboards of the closet upstairs, something I hadn't told anyone about in years. They took our phones, wallets, keys, even the hard drives from our computers. Everything. At one point, they joked about coming back next year, saying, "Hell, this one's better stocked than the last." Then, just before sunrise, they left. Took our SUV too. We sat in silence for at least 5 minutes after they were gone, listening for any sign they might return. When I was sure they were really gone, I scooted myself across the floor, managed to knock over a knife block from the kitchen counter, and used one of the blades to cut through my zip tie. Freed the rest of the family, and we got the hell out of there. Drove Sarah's old Subaru into town. The sheriff's department was open, but the response was disappointing. The sheriff himself, a broad-shouldered man in his late 50s named Rourke, nodded along as I gave the report, but barely took notes. Said it sounded like something similar that had happened a few towns over the week before. When I asked about surveillance or road cams, he just sighed. These kinds of things happen, unfortunately. Might have been a random hit. He promised to file the report and keep us posted. That was it. Something about the whole thing didn't sit right with me. It felt like he was brushing it off. Too quickly, too casually, as if it wasn't the first time, and maybe not even the worst. So I hired a private investigator, a friend of a friend who had done some freelance work for a buddy of mine in Detroit. He came up, took photos of everything, and managed to find trail cam footage from a nearby property that showed two men scouting our house 2 days earlier, before we had even arrived. The real breakthrough came 3 weeks later. My P. I got a hold of dispatch logs and noted something strange. A few of the random hits Sheriff Rourke mentioned. They all happened within 2 days of the sheriff being off duty, and the same SUV, our SUV, was caught on a traffic cam near a pawn shop in Saginaw, driven by Rourke's nephew. By the end of the month, a quiet internal investigation turned into a full-on scandal. Sheriff Rourke was arrested for conspiracy and aiding organized theft. Turns out, he and a few buddies had been running a burglary ring targeting seasonal properties. They'd scout homes they assumed were empty, but when they weren't, they made do anyway. We eventually got some of our stuff back. Not all, but some. And the insurance company helped with the rest. But none of that fixed the fact that we'd been tied up in our own living room, that our kids saw their parents completely powerless, that they knew what it felt like to be hunted in the place we called safe. We sold the lake house the following spring. Some things just don't feel like home anymore. This happened a couple years ago, Labor Day weekend, the summer before our senior year of college. There were 6 of us, me, my girlfriend Allie, our friends Brian and Tessa, and this other couple, Jaden and Claire. The plan was simple. One last spontaneous road trip before school started. No itinerary, no hotel bookings, just music, gas station snacks, and the open road. We'd figure it out along the way. We left Georgia around noon and drove all the way down to Florida. I think it was close to 11 p.m. by the time we rolled into town. We were somewhere on the Gulf Coast, Panhandle area, I think. We tried a few hotels along the beachfront, but they were all full. Some didn't even have anyone at the front desk. Labor Day weekend, go figure. That's when Brian, always the go-with-the-flow type, said, "Why don't we just crash on the beach? It's a warm night. We've got blankets. Could be fun." It didn't take much convincing. We found a public beach access point, unloaded a few bags, and made our way down a boardwalk to the sand. It was dark, but the moon was bright and the air was warm. We picked a quiet spot and laid out our stuff. At first, it was actually kind of magical, just us and the stars, the waves crashing. Someone had a little Bluetooth speaker playing lo-fi beats. We passed around some snacks and talked about all the stupid things we'd done the past 3 years. Sometime around 3 a.m., I was half asleep when I heard it. Voices. At first, I thought maybe it was just other people walking the beach. But it didn't fade like normal conversation. It stayed, low, rhythmic. "Do you guys hear that?" I whispered. Jaden sat up, then nodded. "Over there." He pointed past a line of dunes, maybe 200 yards down the shore. We all went quiet, straining to listen. It sounded like chanting. "I'm gonna go check it out," Brian said, standing up and brushing the sand off his shorts. I should have told him not to, but curiosity gets the best of us sometimes. I followed him. We climbed the dunes slowly, trying to stay low. When we got to the top, we peeked over. There was a fire burning down in a hollow between the dunes. Maybe 10 or 12 people stood around it, facing inward, slowly moving in a circle. Not in robes or costumes, just regular clothes, shorts, t-shirts, flip-flops, but they were chanting something, and I swear I couldn't make out a single word. Then, out of nowhere, two men dragged a woman into the firelight. She had a sack over her head and was clearly struggling. Brian whispered, "What the hell is this?" The two men yanked the sack off, and the woman, she looked maybe late 30s, started pleading with them. "Please," she said, "it wasn't my fault. I did everything you asked." None of them responded. They just kept circling. Then one of the men stepped closer to her and raised his arm toward the fire. I don't know what came over me, but I shouted, "Hey!" Everything stopped. The chanting, the movement. Even the fire seemed to flicker lower for a moment. All of them turned to look toward the dunes. I ducked, heart pounding, but it was too late. A few seconds later, Brian and I peeked up again. The woman was gone. Most of the group had vanished into the shadows, but four men were now walking, no, running, toward the dune. "Go!" I yelled. We sprinted back down the dune, stumbling in the sand. I was shouting for the others to get up, pack, run, anything. Brian was ahead of me, kicking up sand. I could hear footsteps behind us, fast, heavy. We didn't even try to grab our blankets or bags. We just booked it. All six of us ran barefoot across the beach, cutting through the dunes and back to the boardwalk. I turned once to look behind us and saw two figures standing at the top of the dune, just watching. We piled into the car, slammed the doors shut, and Brian, thank God, had already started the engine. He floored it out of there, tires squealing in the sand-covered parking lot. We didn't stop driving until we were 2 towns over, found a Walmart parking lot, and crashed there for the night, wide-eyed and jumpy every time we saw a shadow. The next day, we found a cheap motel, showered, tried to forget it. We even had a decent rest of the trip. But every now and then, when we talk about it, we all kind of go quiet at the same part. The moment those people looked up at us like they knew we'd be watching, like it was part of the plan. I don't know what would have happened if we hadn't spoken up, or if we hadn't run fast enough. But I do know this. Some things aren't just urban legends or creepy stories on Reddit. Sometimes you really are in the wrong place at the wrong time, and we were lucky to get out. Thanks for stopping by the channel. We hope you enjoyed these 3 truly terrifying stories. If you want to hear more just like this one, subscribe to our channel and turn notifications on so you can be reminded when we post a new long-form video every Tuesday at 10 a.m. If you have a story you'd like to hear read on the channel, email it to us at officialnightmarenarratives@gmail.com, and you might just hear your story read in a future episode. Thanks again for listening, and stay spooky, friends. We'll catch you in the next one.